Try saying Antarctica 3 times in less than a paragraph.
Antarctica, Antarctica, Antarctica.
Not in a row.
Oh, okay.
In a paragraph. Use other words and then throw Antarctica in.
You're listening to the Laughing Couple podcast with your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy. Join them weekly as they discuss topics such as relationships, kids, sex, parenting, all unfiltered and all with a healthy dose of laughter. Please welcome your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy.
This is our first podcast in our professional setup.
Yes, it is.
I feel really cool.
The best part about this podcast setup is that this has been sitting in my office for the last year and a half.
I bought this table 2 years ago. And
for
I was
this.
like,
no, it was
for
a year
this.
and a half ago. It was for this. We bought these chairs for this. We bought this table for this.
And now we're actually sitting here.
We bought the setup behind us for this.
Yeah, we got a neon sign.
We got cameras for this.
Cool.
We got audio for this. And yet this is the first time we've done it.
I know. I'm just really proud of ourselves. Okay, so
Selves or just you?
Said I'm really proud of ourselves.
Oh, I just don't. I didn't.
I'm really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't say our and then just keep it singular. I'm really proud of our. No, I didn't.
You said I'm really proud of ourself.
That doesn't make any sense.
I know. That's why I was making fun of you.
Okay, well, let's get right into what turns my tits.
Shall we go for it?
So the kids are in camp
What
this week.
really turns my tits?
What really turns my tits? And then you can go into what dents your dick. What turns my tits?
I know what I'd like to dent my dick.
What? You can't look into the camera because it's so creepy. Okay.
Denting my dick.
Listen, this week the kids are in camp.
They are.
Yeah. And the kids.
You're welcome.
Is this a joke?
Yeah. I didn't set that up at all.
Yeah, no, you didn't. That was some really good sarcasm because you didn't do anything for the camps. So the kids are in camp this week, and then they're also in a camp in a couple weeks from now. But the first camp that they were in included lunch. This one doesn't.
That dents my dick too.
Oh, does it?
It really dents my dick.
Oh, what it dents my dick.
Oh, I know. I knew where this is going.
Is that there hasn't been a single conversation about, hey, do you want me to help with lunches? And we're both working from home. So why does that fall on me?
I think
the only reason I had to ask you for help today because it's like school, right? We share the lunch situation. And I know you loathe making lunch, but that's part of a parental duty. And you didn't even ask me. And that's annoying.
Yeah, that would be annoying.
So there's 2 days left of this week and you can take Thursday,
I'm not here
Friday.
tomorrow.
Yes, you are.
No.
Then amazing. And guess what you're doing tonight?
So I'm not much of a meal prepper, as you know.
Well, you're going to have to be for this one.
I can understand why that would dent your dick. I mean, and twist your tits. Or
yeah,
what is
it's annoying. It just, because I just feel like it's one of those things that it's I'm expected to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yep.
So tonight, what are you doing tomorrow?
I was lying. I'm definitely here tomorrow. I just didn't want to make the lunches.
Okay, well, you're going to make them tomorrow on Friday.
Here's what really dents my dick about that same situation. So cost aside, whatever program they're in aside, we're not going to have this conversation.
Camp is expensive too.
It's a very expensive camp. Yeah. And I cannot fathom why they wouldn't feed the children. Mm-hmm. And I can't fathom why they don't have access to water.
Mm. They did say in
bring
the
an
little form,
extra water bottle.
They do.
That's not a solution for a 9-hour day.
It's not 9 hours. It's 9 to 4.
It's 9 to 4.
10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 7.
7 hours, 2 bottles of water. I came and picked the kids up yesterday and Cooper was like, I need water, Dad. I need water. I'm like, then get water. And he's like, there is no water. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no water? Well, we have to go to the sink and there's flies and stuff in the sink. And I'm like, they don't give you water here? Jeez, no, they don't. Like, they have to give you water.
To be fair, it literally says in the email that you need to bring extra water because there isn't a place for refilling.
I get it.
But also, did you get any of those emails?
Buy a big, gigantic Gatorade thing for the kids. Fill it up before the day starts so that they can have access to it.
That's fair. They should do that. But they didn't.
How can you possibly prepare your child for 7 hours worth of liquid?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. No, I totally agree.
Maybe they show up and they're dehydrated.
They have a little convenient truck that they sell things at that they can buy water at.
You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that.
Anyways.
I'm not asking for a gourmet lunch.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for even a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because you can't do that anymore.
No. Did we ever talk about the time that you sent peanut butter and jelly to school?
Well, I don't think we have.
and
but
then
I
you got so
sucked.
upset, and like we got a call from the school, and I was very gentle in like approaching you with this situation because I knew that you would have been embarrassed, and you were so embarrassed and you were so defensive, and you were like, oh, like I feel like there should be like a rule about that. Like they should let us know. I'm like, everyone in the entire world. Well, not really, but because the States, they can still do it.
Listen, I grew up in a world where I had peanut butter and jelly
correct.
sandwiches for lunch every single day.
It was just wild. You're like, well, they should tell people that.
Either
I'm like, everyone knows that.
Either peanut allergies didn't exist when I was a kid, or the people who had allergies to peanuts like just toughened it out. I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, I didn't know that you weren't allowed to bring peanut butter. And not only did I not allow you to bring peanut butter, you're not allowed to bring peanuts, period. Like any kind of nut.
No, you can't bring, it's any tree nut you can't bring.
When on earth
like
did all of a sudden,
ago.
then all of a sudden everybody and their mother's allergic to peanuts?
Yeah, a long time ago.
When did that happen?
I also think it's so interesting how they do the like testing to get you not allergic. Like they introduce a little bit at a time, and then they become not allergic.
A little bit at a time. Yeah.
It is pretty cool.
It's very scientific.
Hold on, before we get into this everything, I also want to quickly discuss how we don't have some sort of protocol or system in play that when you have a baby within the first year, when they go get their immunizations or whatever, they don't have a test that tests if they're allergic to bees. Don't you think they should have some sort of test? Because we were just talking to our friend who her friend passed away, and he was an adult. He was in the lake and he died because he got stung by a bee and literally didn't know he was allergic as a full grown adult.
Two things. The fact that the guy can be in his 20s and not have been stung by a bee is impressive. But the problem with the bee sting is it's very random. Now, we've already talked about this, just so you know.
Did we?
Yeah, we had this conversation because remember like a month ago, I got stung by the bee.
On the podcast we talked about?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Anyways, I think there should be
there should be testing.
Yes, there should be. Okay.
And there's some other things that should be tested. You know, kids sustain head injuries on a regular basis. I know from a fact as a multiple concussion case myself.
Okay.
There should be cognitive baseline testing at schools.
What do you mean?
What do I mean? Great question, Brittany. So at the beginning of the year, when the kids are fresh and they have no brain injuries and no brain traumas whatsoever, they get tested for cognitive awareness. In the event that they sustain a brain injury,
have something to compare it to.
They've got something to compare their baseline to. Is this person concussed? I don't know. Take a look at well, they can't see straight. Well, take a look at their baseline. Nope, they couldn't see straight then either. Okay, then that's not a problem.
I feel like though that might be hard because they're like your brain is constantly growing. Like you're constantly moving, and there's things that are underdeveloped that wouldn't be developed. So I don't know enough about brains to.
I do. And
really?
I happen to. Okay. My sister is a top chiropractor in our area, but she also specializes in concussion protocol and concussion rehabilitation. And I asked her this question because I said, well, should we get Cooper baseline? And she said, Cooper's a little bit too young for baseline, but Riley is. Okay. So Riley was in grade 3 last year. So I don't know the exact baseline line for you to cross. But I'm saying, okay, in grade 3, they have to start doing reading and literacy testing.
Yeah.
Start with there.
That's fair.
Start there. You should have a baseline. And the reason I say this is because a good friend of ours, as you know, their son sustained a brain injury and they had no way of testing. Well, is he recovered? Is he not recovered? He seems like he's normal, but I don't know if he's normal. They had no baseline to operate off of. So they're going through all of these things. She's constantly in a panic because she thinks her kid's like not normal. Well, normal, but not going to ever be the same version of himself.
I also think that would be really great to have because autistic children, if they can't communicate, you don't know. Like my friend her son is autistic and he has been hurt and injured. And because he doesn't have the verbal communications, you don't know when, like they can't say, yeah, no, I'm fine. So they could look at the baseline and the test and be like, okay, this isn't fine. If he can't communicate that, like, anyways,
100%. And in last year, and I don't mean this rudely because it is what it is. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't have access to information. You don't have the information. I just happen to have had a lot of concussions, so I know the side effects of these concussions. And when Cooper smoked his head last year, the problem with the brain injury is it's not bleeding down your face. It's not like your arm's cut off. It's not like, oh wow, that guy's hurt
on the side
because
of, like, on the corner of the wall.
You can't see it. No, when he's at school and he smoked his head off with the concrete. Well, I came in and they said to me, well, he seems okay. I'm like, did you just tell me he puked?
Yeah.
He's not okay.
Yeah.
Like, you don't puke when you're just feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's got a concussion. His eyes were like, his pupils were dilated. He was like zeroed in. Like, I'm like, this kid's concussed. But they don't have that baseline to go to and say, hey, listen, this is how he operates when he doesn't have a brain injury. Here's how he operates when he potentially could have a brain injury. Oh, there's a significant difference here. We should do something about this.
Speaking of brain injuries, it hurts my brain to think about the ocean. Like, coming from our, like, last week we talked about the deepest breath, but this week our whole episode is on conspiracy theories, and we need to have a disclaimer because these don't mean that we believe them. Okay. We did a little light research, but we might, but we're not going to tell you. And we want to talk about some of them because some of them are very interesting, but I want to just really quickly touch on the extension of last week's episode on the deepest breath, because it was all about the ocean and stuff. So there is a conspiracy theory that talks about the ocean. Like, you know how NASA is just like, deuces, we explored it, we don't want to be here anymore. So then people think that's why they went to space, because they found something in there that they didn't want to be. That's the conspiracy theory. That
the theory is that NASA was exploring the ocean, found something they didn't want to, like a megalodon, and then said, fuck this, let's go to space, because that sounds safer.
Yeah, something. But like, let's go to space.
Oh.
Like, let's pretend we're going to space. But what I'm saying is, like, they
became a propaganda machine that pretended to be in space.
But because they were in the ocean and there was some like shady shit. And then people went off. There's like a whole theory that the ocean parallels to the flat earth theory, where like the oceans are actually just like underneath our ocean is another world, like flat earth. So our ocean is actually on top of another world, which is like, and then it just keeps going and going and going. And so we'll never be able to reach the depths of it because it's just impossible. But then when you get to the depths of it, gravity takes over and then there's another world.
So
crazy, girl. Crazy.
I do love myself a good conspiracy.
Yeah.
As you know, conspiracies are my thing. They're my jam. I have spent many hours late at night in the basement by myself.
Facts.
Not watching porn. Deep diving into the conspiracy. So far down the rabbit hole that I thought to myself, if I have access to this information, am I a threat?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how deep down these things I got sometimes. But I said to someone who is also a fellow conspiracy theorist, I said, where I stop is the flat earth. That's where I stop. And they said to me, that's interesting. I used to think the same way. And I'm like, wait a second. What do you mean you used to think the same way? They're like, I've been doing some research and I'm not so confident anymore. And I must say,
it's wild.
I'm like, okay, this conversation can end. And then that evening I went and deep dived. Like, oh my God.
It's wild.
And
because they think that it's basically like the Truman Show and it's just two like Antarcticas. Like you end at.
No, not even that. Not two Antarcticas. There's only one Antarctica and it wraps around all of the continents.
Oh, so it's like a big ice wall.
It's a huge ice wall. That's what I read. Right, it's a huge ice wall. And not that there's Earth underneath Earth.
Yeah.
That there's Earth beyond the ice wall.
Oh, like other worlds?
There's other worlds. Like all of the worlds that we talk about in like Greek mythology.
So we're just like living on this like parallel plane and there's just like worlds upon worlds upon worlds upon worlds.
What they're saying is that the world is way, 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 way bigger than what we know it to be. It's not a sphere. It's flat.
What about the other planets and stuff? Like we see in the telescopes, how do they explain that? Like, and those are circular and spherical.
So listen, I'm not gonna go so deep down in this, because it's not worth it at this particular moment in time, and I don't have enough of my research to back it up.
But next week.
But here's the interesting thing about Antarctica, and most people don't know this.
Okay.
After World War II, there was a submarine that was intercepted from the Nazis, and that's where they were. And then there was a general in the United States that went and explored Antarctica, and he came back and said that there is, in fact, a world on the other side. There is trees, there is like rivers and waterfalls and just unbelievable stuff. And then he said,
he was also like, I took a bunch of meth before I went.
We're talking about one of the most top tier generals in the United States history. Like, he is like cream of the crop. He rises to the top. He's better yet, the Terminator, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, try to play me up as if I was. Anyways, so he goes in and he says that he actually, when they were flying in, they found this cave. And he went through this cave, and there was another being on the other side that stopped him. His plane was stopped. They grounded his plane, and they're another species out there. This is the whole alien idea.
Okay.
Is that they're not out there. Mm-hmm. They're out there.
Okay.
They're not up. They're out.
So can I go into
like, no? But hold on 1 second. This is what's creepy about Antarctica. Okay. Antarctica. In 1958, and you can look this up on the Funkin' Wagnall. 1950 Funkin' Wagnall. It's like a dictionary back in like the 70s. Apparently it was a terrible one. It was like sun, define sun, see earth, define earth, see sun.
Okay.
Anyways, in 1958, there was a treaty that was signed by all of the countries in the world.
Okay.
That stated that exploration of Antarctica is illegal.
Right.
If you were to take your boat all the way to Antarctica.
I've never heard of boat. That's more like a sea-doo.
No, it's hitting the waves. Anyways.
You were like,
you take your boat all the way to Antarctica. Before you get to the wall, you will be met by military.
Interesting.
You will be met by military. And people say, well, what about the people who get to explore Antarctica? No, the people who get to explore Antarctica are brought... Yeah. It's hard to say 3 times. Try saying Antarctica 3 times in less than a paragraph.
Antarctica.
Not in a row.
Oh, okay.
In a paragraph. Okay. Use other words and then throw Antarctica in. God damn, it's really difficult. Anyways.
Try saying it 4 times.
Try to say a whole paragraph with Antarctica in it twice.
Oh, there you go.
Good luck to you.
All right.
Anyways. They take you on explorations to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Exactly where they want to take you.
Right.
And on top of that, this is where it gets really funky, right? Because we were going to talk about the pyramids. We're not going to talk about this. So this will be like round 2 conspiracy if people actually enjoy this. Because we are not a conspiracy theory. Like, welcome. We teach you about how to become good parents and good marriage. And did you know that Lee Harvey Oswald? Anyways. Kill John Lennon.
Must kill John Lennon.
Anyways, they found pyramids in Antarctica. When they do like they fly over them, there are pyramids. Like I'm talking
ice?
Yes.
What do you mean? Are they ice pyramids? So they're icebergs?
No, they're like they made it like they're ice. They're covered in snow, but they're
icebergs.
No, they're not icebergs.
You'll never believe what I saw.
Anyways, look it up. We are not allowed, as citizens of this world, we are not allowed to explore Antarctica.
I just think you just dropped this information that was incorrect, and it just reminded me of when you were like, "Did you know that you can't wash your balls with soap or you will get cancer?" And I was like, what? And you're like, look it up. And I did. And it's completely false. They just meant you get irritated, but you're like, I'm never washing my balls again.
Ball irritation, cancer, on the same plan. Anyways, Antarctica, look it up. Look it up. You cannot explore
and try to say it a couple times. Okay. So this actually is a really good segue to my main conspiracy theory that you hadn't heard of because I asked you yesterday. So basically, there is a book that has been buried by the government, and it's called The Adam and Eve Story, but it's like a book. Okay, so this book was taken by the government years ago. Sorry, Ryan just hit his head on the shelf. Do you have a baseline for concussions? Okay, so this book was confiscated by the government because they said that
Who wrote it?
I don't know, it's called
short on the research. Eh?
No, I'm just giving you the generalized situation. Okay.
Yep.
So the CIA, the government was like, there's this information in this book is too dangerous for the public to see. So they buried it. Recently, the pages, a couple pages and a couple chapters have been released. And it's like literally everywhere right now. People are like, what the fuck? So basically,
who released them?
Okay. So the government, like I don't know why certain things were released, but like maybe some of them were leaked and then the government was like, oh, here you go. So let me just read this for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So for decades, a book titled The True Adam and Eve Story, that's what it's called, if you want to look up who wrote it, has been shrouded in mystery and speculation. The CIA classified it in 1966 before anyone had a chance to read it, and it remained a highly tightly guarded secret until recently. So the book explored the history of the cataclysmic events and predicted the potential future catastrophes. So the whole idea of this book is that right now we are living in the 6th generation. So there has already been, like, we are the 6th catastrophe. So something huge happens every 10,000 to 12,000 years. Okay. So a huge event happens. Like,
they say the polar ice is
everything is switched, right?
Switch. Yeah.
So we're the 6th civilization that has come out of like a huge apocalyptic event. And when this happens, basically the earth does like a hard reset. So we go back to like cavemen,
Neanderthals.
Like, right. And so people, and like when this happens, things are switched. Antarctica, people have said we used to have forests. They used to be like super like lush with greenery. The ocean would not be water. Think about fucking Atlantis. Why is there a city underwater? Like everything is kind of like switched.
It's not. It's on the other side of,
you know what I mean?
Antarctica.
Anyways, this, and like the Sahara Desert used to have, like, it used to be a forest, but this is like the huge theory. And in this book,
Egypt used to be filled with water.
This book has the entire like predictions of these events that happen. And it's just like, it's wild, but I think what makes it really creepy and a conspiracy theory is, why did the CIA and the government say this is too dangerous to show? Like, if it was just a book that was found and there was like whatever, some random person who's like, I'm going to throw this theory out there, then who, like, doesn't matter. But because they were like, no bueno, you cannot see it, that makes, I feel like, people be like, well, there has to be some truth to this.
Of course there is. There was a comedian that says, like, listen, guys, I understand that, like, you don't believe in conspiracies and conspiracy theorists or whatever, but to believe that there's not, like, that everything that the government tells you is true, like everything that not one of those conspiracies is actually accurate, 100%. If that information was there, then it was for a reason buried. But here's the thing: keep in mind that, when was that book written?
I don't know. It was confiscated in 1966.
Okay, so the television existed and all of those things, but there was a period of time, and I don't even know who it was. It might actually be Orson Welles who did this. He came on the radio and he had said that I believe that aliens had come down and that they were killing people, and a ton of people in the United States of America heard this radio advertisement thing that was just a spoof, and they literally killed themselves. They literally killed themselves because they were under the impression that they were being attacked by aliens.
Right.
May have been aliens or Russians. I know that they're completely different, but I don't know it, and I wasn't prepared for this.
I'm
but
sorry, that's huge.
The Russians are coming. I'm pretty sure it was aliens. But either way, there were people that jumped off bridges to kill themselves and their families because they thought that they were under attack.
It's terrifying.
You're talking about like, we have to remember that 120 years ago, how we didn't communicate. Like, you lived in a village, and what happened in that village stayed in that village. And there was only a handful of people in the country that had access to trading outside of those village, therefore had access to information outside of that village. So everyone was very, very naive about how the world worked. It isn't until like the last 100+ years that we've actually had access to this information. And so the people who govern the people, when they have access to this information, they say, hey, listen, I don't know if these guys are ready for that yet. And we're dealing with this right now when it comes to aliens. The government is now finally coming out and saying, yeah, we know aliens exist. Yes, Roswell, New Mexico, they did crash. Yes, we found bodies. Yes, we've been working with them. Yes, we've got treaties and all of these things with them. We knew when that happened, you weren't prepared for this information.
But I feel like that's kind of a cop-out. Like, who are you to decide to say we're not ready? Like, do you know what I mean? I think that's the frustration.
Well, we put them in power to make those decisions.
Not about aliens.
I'm not suggesting for a millisecond that they're accurate or correct in those decisions, but they are put in this position to make those decisions.
Okay, can you go into the Titanic? Because this is a conspiracy that I specifically remember you telling me on the couch, because I had never heard about the Titanic conspiracy. And to the point where I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, there was a Titanic. Jack died on the, like, he couldn't get on the door. Like, this is the true story. And then you told me, and I was like, what?
Yeah. So this is
crazy.
There's two main Titanic conspiracies.
Okay.
Two main ones. And both of them are a bit stretchy. One less stretchy, but like.
Go with that one then.
One less stretchy. No, I'll go with the first one because I'll just tell you.
Okay.
So when Titanic was built, there was 3 ships. There was the Titanic, the Britannia, and the Olympia.
Okay.
The Olympia was the first one to release. The Olympia and the Titanic were off by like maybe a couple of feet. Like they were like almost identical ships.
Okay.
Almost identical ships. But Titanic was like the big ship that everyone was talking about. But realistically speaking, the ships were almost identical. When the Olympic was being released, there was a fire inside the engine room at the front of the boat, the bow of the boat, front of the boat.
I don't know.
I'm not a ship guy. Anyways,
not a big ship guy.
There was a huge fire that was in there, and JP Morgan, who was the bank that owned the White Star Line, the White Star Line, which is also the Olympia Titanic.
Okay.
Came in and put an insurance claim against that, and he was rejected. The insurance claim was rejected, so they had to bring the boat back to Belfast. Okay. And this is where the conspiracy comes in. They believe that there was a big switcheroo.
Okay.
They believe that they switched the Olympia and the Titanic, relabeled them, repainted them, fixed the issues that were on, and where the fire existed on the Olympia is where the Titanic hit the iceberg.
Right, and so they're saying that the iceberg impact wouldn't have affected the boat had it not been in a prior state of, like, it just wasn't.
No.
Oh.
They're saying that it was intentionally sank.
Oh, so like there was no iceberg?
There was an iceberg.
Yeah.
Straight ahead.
Yeah.
But sorry, Jake's laughing. I'm laughing. There was an iceberg and it was intentionally sank because
I feel like you were like a sleeper agent there, like kill John Lennon.
Anyways, because there were multiple reports that were sent to the Titanic that said, slow your ship down.
There's an iceberg.
There's tons of icebergs ahead. Like you are literally going into an iceberg infested area of water.
Or pyramids.
Slow. You're trying to debunk something before I can even tell it.
The water pyramids, but
so,
I saw
anyways,
them.
they warned them, do not travel as fast as you're traveling. And whatever his name is, Naismith, that's the guy who invented basketball, but it's the oldest name I know. It was like a big old fuck you guys. We're in the Titanic. This is unsinkable. We got Molly Brown back here. We ain't going anywhere. Full throttle straight ahead. And they detoured the boat slightly, but not nearly enough to miss it. And they fucking crashed this thing. It sank, and they got the full insurance policy on that boat.
Okay, so my question still remains: if it was the Olympia that wasn't that didn't have the fire. Oh no, sorry. They're saying that the Titanic that sank was actually the Olympia.
Correct.
Okay, so if it was the actual Titanic that didn't have any prior damage, do you think that it still would have sunk if it went into these icebergs?
Yes.
So what's the point? Like, why were they like, well, let's switch them? Like, I don't understand.
Because it was an insurance policy.
And they wanted the other boat to be like, well, that one's not affected. Like, there's no fire. Everything's fine there. Yeah. So like, let's just fuck this one up.
We have these 3 boats. Okay. One's significantly damaged.
So let's sink it anyway.
Let's sink it. But here's where the conspiracy gets really messed up.
Right.
So JP Morgan wasn't loosely. He was very connected to the Rothschild family.
Okay.
The Rothschild family, JP Morgan, and a handful of other individuals in the world were the most wealthy, influential people, period.
So they were like the OG influencers?
They were some say they are still.
Link in bio.
Some say they are still, and I'm not going to use the word Illuminati, but Illuminati. Some people say they are still the brainchild of everything. Everything that we see, touch, and feel is loosely or like 100% geared by these individuals. Okay. So back then, these individuals got together And what they wanted to do is they wanted to control all of the banking systems, because if you control the money, you control the people. And a handful, a couple, 3 of the wealthiest men in the room said, no, we can't do that. Like, money is money. Gold is gold. Trade is trade.
We're not going to screw with
We're
this.
not screwing with this.
Okay.
Those 3 individuals were on the Titanic, and all 3 of those individuals died. You know who was supposed to be on the Titanic with them? JP Morgan.
Yeah.
You know who got off the Titanic before it left? JP Morgan.
Oh.
Did not die. So Titanic sank a year or 2 years later, Federal Reserve.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, because we're Canadian, but we do have a lot of American listeners, the Federal Reserve, which is where your currency comes from, is not owned by the United States of America. It is a centralized bank that's owned by a handful of very wealthy individuals. And if you look at your dollar is not a dollar. It's a debt to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve came into power immediately. Everything was gone.
So basically the whole theory is that they put them on the Titanic, or AKA the Olympia, because they knew that it was going to go down, and they were like, we're just going to wash our hands. And their whole like, we don't want to do this. We're not going to be bad people and fuck with the money. That, like, it just doesn't cease to exist.
So if you remember the movie Titanic,
I do.
Do you remember
Straight ahead?
Do you remember the character that was played by the guy who played in Young and the Restless? What the hell is his name? Anyways, Victor Newman.
Okay.
Victor Newman's character was the wealthiest dude. They even talk about it in the movie. He was this isn't happening. And because he was the wealthiest individual, and he made his money in insurance, they couldn't do it without him. He dies, they push the Federal Reserve, and now all of a sudden the entire banking system in the United States runs through that. Now, globally, we run through that, period. It's the greenback, right? It's the standardized form of money. Now, this gets me into this next conspiracy, which is how they're all somewhat intertwined. This is the best part about it. This is why it's considered a conspiracy. The theory is what we have to think about it, but the idea of a conspiracy theory is that we believe that a group of people are conspiring to do something
bad.
And here's our theory about that. So just so you know, when a conspiracy theory is proven, it's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's just facts.
Yeah.
There was a conspiracy to kill this person.
Right.
So shortly, the Federal Reserve had a lot of power, obviously, and it was growing and it was expanding. And one president, Mr. John F. Kennedy, wanted to pull the Federal Reserve because he said, why are we as a country, the largest, biggest, most powerful country in the world, why are we at the mercy of these individuals? We've got enough gold. Let's bring the gold standard back.
Okay.
Right? So he was going to change the he was going to change the currency as opposed to being Federal Reserve back to gold.
Okay.
Okay. The gold standard still existed. I believe it was Nixon that X'd the gold standard, and now we've been greenback ever since. But John F. Kennedy, as you guys know, in 1963 was assassinated. Here's how the story actually goes, and then we'll get into the conspiracy of it. Okay. So I want to make sure that this is coming for a fact. So the official story goes like this. While in Dallas, Texas, Jackie Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, Governor Connolly, and his wife were parading the town of Dallas.
Okay.
Right? They were in a convertible, waving to the massive crowd of people who were celebrating the president's arrival. Shortly after turning left on Elm in Michigan, they passed by the Texas School Book Depository. Out of the 6th floor window rang 3 shots.
Didn't you go here?
I did.
Yeah.
I visited this place. This was amazing. I get the goosies just thinking about it.
Voices.
Out of the 3rd floor window sat Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
The first shot missed the car completely, hit a curb, and ricocheted off. The second shot hit President Kennedy in the neck. And the third shot, the final shot, was the kill shot. It hit him in the head. It should be noted, however, that the second bullet, which they call the magic bullet, not only did it pass through Kennedy's neck, so it entered his neck, exited his neck, it hit Governor Connolly in the back, through his back, through his chest, into his wrist, out of his wrist, and into his right thigh.
What?
That is 7 entry and exit points that bullet hit.
What do you mean?
This is what I mean. The shot was fired. It hit Kennedy in the neck. It wasn't the kill shot. Went through his neck. Hit Governor Connolly, who was sitting in front of him, in the back. Went through his back.
Who was sitting in front of him?
So he's sitting in front of him. They were in a motor.
So did it go through this person and then hit Kennedy?
No, it went through Kennedy first.
Yes.
Went through his body, through his neck, hit Governor Colony in the back, went through his back, into his wrist, out of his wrist, and into his right thigh. One bullet. They call it the magic bullet.
I don't understand how it did that. Like, how was he sitting? Like a contortionist? Why did the bullet go through so many parts of his body? I don't understand.
I guess he was like, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. But this is the whole idea is like,
that makes no sense.
You couldn't figure it out. So the Warren Commission just came out and said there was only one bullet. It went through here, and here. And then there was another bullet. It hit Kennedy in the head. The whole conspiracy is that there was multiple shots from multiple angles. Anyways, but we're not going to get into that.
Okay.
So the Warren Commission, which is a group of people that were in charge of investigating the assassination, determined that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone.
Sure.
There was no other.
Yeah, he was just like whatsoever. A rogue shooter who didn't like.
Now let's talk about Lee Harvey Oswald for a second, then we'll get into conspiracy theory. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for this murder.
Mm-hmm.
He was arrested, but there's some question as to whether or not he was actually ever charged. It doesn't really matter because he didn't get a chance to trial because 2 days after the assassination, while leaving the prison or that he was in to go to the courthouse, Jack Ruby, who was a nightclub owner in Texas, a strip club owner in Texas, shot him in the stomach and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Ruby was arrested, was convicted of murder in 1966. He then came back for a second trial, but before his second trial could start, he died of a pulmonary embolism in 1967.
Okay.
So he went from a healthy dude to like he exploded in jail and died.
So they were like, we need to cover our tracks. That's the conspiracy.
So now the two people that are connected with the shooting of the president of the United States are now both dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the theory. So here's some
that's the facts.
Those are the facts.
Right.
Here are some key facts about Lee Harvey Oswald. That this is where everything kind of goes a little haywire. Lee Harvey Oswald was trained as a sharpshooter when he was with the Marine Corps.
Okay.
However, he scored a 212 on his score, which does not mean he's certainly not a sharpshooter.
Why? What does a sharpshooter score?
I don't know. I don't know. But I read that he got a 212, which does not mean he's a good sharpshooter. And he was kicked out of the Marine Corps for his idealism. Further to that point, to show that Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't a sharpshooter, shortly before he assassinated the president of the United States, he attempted to assassinate a general. That general was sitting in his living room, and Lee Harvey Oswald, sitting behind a tree, missed him. So you're talking about a man who scored a 212 on his sharpshooting test,
which could have been out of 15.
Could have been out of 215,
which is like a pretty good.
Anyways, he wasn't a sharpshooter. Missed a man sitting in a chair. Missed him. Bullet went right past him, through his window, right past him into his wall. Right? Missed him.
That bullet also went through that guy's back, wrist, and knee.
But this same individual was able, from a 6th floor depository window, to shoot down at a moving vehicle, get 3 shots off in like 7 seconds, and hit the president twice. This is the same man that missed a guy sitting there.
Okay.
Lee Harvey Oswald was hired a month or two before the parade happened to work at the school book depository. The school book depository. He was hired to work there.
Antarctica.
Right? Like a week before or a couple days before the actual assassination, the route was rerouted.
Okay.
It was never supposed to go down that road.
Interesting.
It was rerouted. In fact, if you look at the parade, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. When they turn left on Elm or on Michigan, there's nobody. There's very little people. In fact, there's only a handful of people, one of them being Zapruder, who was standing over top near the grassy knoll, which is where they say the second shot happened. And he filmed the assassination. It's the only recording of the actual assassination. Although there was multiple cameras around there, that's the only one that they got captured. Right. And this is where the whole conspiracy theory starts to come into play.
If you said that there's nobody over there, like if they turned left, right, and that wasn't like that was a last minute decision, or
it was a last minute decision. So here's the idea. Lee Harvey Oswald, that route was never supposed to go through his place of employment.
Right.
The CIA had him. The CIA knew that he was a threat. He had multiple times stated that he wanted to kill the president of the United States.
Right.
He had multiple times, he had connections
so
with
like,
Fidel.
let's just drive him by the place.
They had Fidel Castro there. He was being watched by the CIA and by the FBI. It is well documented that they knew who he was. Mm-hmm. They knew where he lived. They knew what he did for a living. They knew everything about him. And again, you can say, okay, so Lee Harvey Oswald happened to be in the right place at the right time. He brought his rifle from home to work.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have known that the route was rerouted. Mm-hmm. Why would he have brought this rifle to the school book depository?
Unless he was told previously.
Unless he was told previously.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that I know who did this. I'm not saying anything along those lines. Don't. But what I am saying is it does really feel like Lee Harvey Oswald was put there to kill the president of the United States.
And it wasn't working alone.
And he was not working alone, and he was not the only shooter.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, I think he took the first shot and missed.
And then you think his handler was like, "God damn it, Lee!"
Well,
took the other one.
The whole thing about it is if you look at the Zapruder film and you see how John F. Kennedy reaches for his neck, he was clearly hit.
Yeah.
When he was hit, Connolly was hit. They both went down. Shortly thereafter, like 3 seconds later, he was hit in the head.
Yeah.
Now, if you're hit in the head, the bullet entered from behind. The bullet hole would be small at the back and big at the front, right? It explodes through you.
Mm-hmm.
John F. Kennedy's forehead, the back of his head blew up. Not the front of his head, the back of his head. Why? Because Jackie Kennedy was literally reaching at the back of the limousine, pulling pieces of his skull and brain back into the car. So when he got hit, his head's down, his head goes back and to the left. And his brain matter goes back into the left to the back of the limousine.
So that means there's multiple angles.
That means that he was shot from the front.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Lee Harvey Oswald was like 600 feet behind him up.
And everyone was just like, no, that's wrong.
Well, this is the whole idea. They have covered this up.
Okay. This is a wild one, and we could talk about this for forever.
It's insane. But here's what I will say. I've been to Dallas. Mm-hmm. I've been to the school book depository. I sat and looked out the window, 4 windows over from where Lee Harvey Oswald would have taken that shot. Mm-hmm. If he hit him on the first one, I would have been okay.
What do you mean? You would have been okay?
If he took the first shot and hit Kennedy, I would have been like, cool, good shot.
That's what you would have said?
No, I wouldn't have said that. It would have made sense to me. The fact that the first shot was missed. Mm-hmm. Now imagine you're in a sniper's net, you're looking down, you've got someone in your target. That first shot is going to be your best shot.
Yeah.
The first shot missed him. Like, I don't even.
And then it's chaos.
That first shot didn't even hit the fucking limousine.
Yeah.
And then it's pure chaos. And in 7 seconds, you were able to rhyme off 3 shots. Mm-hmm. 2 of them not only hit him in the one hit him in the throat, the other one hit him in the head. Mm-hmm. You're telling me that you missed an entire limousine on your first shot, and in your second shot, you hit the guy in the fucking neck when he's further away.
Yeah.
And in your third shot, when he's further away, you hit him in the head, and the back of his brain blows up. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, we have to wrap this up. This one has taken a lot of time. I want to quickly go, like, just to end this off, because it does bring it back to our conversation last week about the moon. We talked about the moon, right?
Yeah, we did.
I can't even remember what we talked about yesterday. So you had mentioned to me last night, Stanley Kubrick. They said that before he died, he claimed that he filmed the whole moon landing, right?
He was in charge. He was the producer of the film landing.
So did you look more into that conspiracy? Because I was looking a little deeper into that, and they said that there were so many clues connected from the moon landing and The Shining. Did you know that? I
didn't, but Stanley Kubrick, who did The Shining, also did 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah. And
he did. He came out before he died and literally was interviewed and said, yes, I did this. I filmed this.
Right. So The Shining, the conspiracy theorists claim that there are clues of the fake moon landing in The Shining. One of them being the room number is 275. So you can see it on the room key or whatever. And then apparently this is a little bit of a stretch to me, because I'm like, that's so like kind of random. But the distance in miles is 275,000 from like Earth or whatever, from the moon. That's like the one connection. And then the other one is there's a little boy in The Shining, and he's wearing a full Apollo sweater. And it literally says like Apollo. It's kind of like interesting. Anyways, those would mean nothing if there
unless
wasn't,
they mean something.
Unless they mean something. So it was just
and
kind
this
of
is
like
the man, and this is the man that before he died came out and flat out said that he was in charge of the production of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super crazy.
Talked about the hangar, talked about where it was, talked about all of it.
Anyways,
so they used the same one for all Apollo missions.
I feel like it would be a good like kind of ending just to maybe ask if you guys have any like wicked conspiracy theories. Maybe we can do like one, like we can chat about one every once in a while. So like send us in some that you've heard of that aren't just like whack. Like we'd like to have some that have at least some baseline or facts to go off of, like not just something like super random. And then we'll chat about it and just keep it like, there's no morality in this. These are just theories and it's very interesting to talk about.
Yeah. The idea here, and this is important for people to know, in a perfect world, everything that we're saying is false. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, the narrative that's been presented to us is in fact the narrative that is real.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be fooled. That's a perfect world.
We don't want this to be the case.
Do we want it?
But the idea is it okay to have a conversation about it? Yes. Is it okay to ask questions?
Yeah.
Yes. If you're not, you're just going to jump off a bridge when they say, hey, the aliens are coming, or the Russians.
Yeah. Depending on who you ask. Yeah. Anyways.
Ask questions.
Cheers.
It's okay. Cheers.
It was a really heavy episode.
Heavy.
Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye.
Aside from my soul.